All right, well, I hope this is ready to go. And I realize now I forgot to get a. I'm hoping this is a twist off. If not, we'll figure it out. I have some drinks that I wanted to try for a while as a video, and I just never have. So we're gonna do them live. That Bill O'Reilly quote that I can't say. Summer, good luck with your sleep meds. Yeah, I'm a bit dragging behind because for me, this is, I had to wake up at 6 a.m. and it was getting close to 1 a.m. And for me, that's very unusual. I'm usually in bed 9:30, 10. I have no idea I was up so late. So I took a sleeping pill and I would say maybe halfway through, no, I would say up until maybe 6:40, I was still very uh, groggy, high. I don't know. I wasn't thinking very straight. So I guess that's why I'm dressed so gay. No, I just wasn't thinking very straight. And so I'm hoping we'll have a coherent live stream. So good evening, Mr. Wireless. Hello, Optimistically Cynical. I always like reading your name. Because I always feel like it's different from cynically optimistic, and it just kind of makes me think, what is optimistically cynical? So, got my coffee here. Tell me how you guys are doing. I had one hell of a February and March, um, and at least it's grading is done for the period. If you guys have any questions, like what is it from a teacher's perspective in terms of the exam time, let me know. Always happy to talk about work. Let's see. Yeah, I hope everyone's okay too. I found a few hits of. So I'm gonna have to remove that just because I am in Korea. So I don't know about the idea of discussing that stuff. Actually, I don't know. Can we unhide it? Is that a possibility? I don't know. I hate having to like block people's speech. Anyway, I'm sure she saw it anyway. Lovely background. Yeah, it's cherry blossom season. Excuse me. So I thought why not? Why not go for that? Actually, I think I'm going to start using an AI art generator for some of my backgrounds. I think I'm going to start doing that. I'm really having fun with the AI art generator. It's I enjoy drawing. I always have, but there's always been some block to that I've never been able to cross. So I started drawing a long time ago. I was one of those kids and teens that just had like my notebooks for school, but then also in my school notebooks I had a totally separate notebook for just drawing. And then I'd take them both out, and I usually just draw instead of take notes. I wasn't the best with notes. Yeah, I love drawing so much. Everybody thought, oh, you're gonna be, you're probably gonna do something with art, and I never had planned that because to me art was too subjective to make a job out of it, but also I just felt there was something that I just couldn't like I just couldn't get my drawings to look like how I wanted. And so I felt like after spending, 5 hours on something and then to just throw it away or delete it, I don't know, it just really upset me and that really discouraged me from wanting to draw at all. So with this AI art bot, it's a lot different because there's ways I can tweak it with words, and I feel like I'm much better with words than I am with drawing. I think that I make more sense linguistically, like there's like different types of intelligence if you think of Gardner's multiple intelligences, um, and I think for me, like linguistic stuff, um, logic stuff, I tend to be better with that. But stuff like bodily kinesthetic or like visual-spatial, really, really bad with it, always have been. And so I think, yeah, working with the AI art bot's a lot of fun. It's weird though, because you have to try to think, how is the AI thinking and why did it do this? So for example, I was trying to help somebody make a vector image yesterday, and we got it to where, okay, this looks good, but we want to have a white background. So I said, well, let's see what happens. Let's just try taking the image, comma, and then the second prompt is white background. And then it gave this result, which was vaguely similar to what we had from the original image, but then there was like a white model, like a woman's face in all of the results. And I was just thinking, what is the AI thinking that I have to overcome how it's thinking? And so for me, I think working with this AI stuff is really fun, because you have to try to think how the computer's thinking so you can communicate with it better. So I really have a lot of fun with that. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, 안녕하세요, 오병. Do you like my book? The exciting nightlife of the teacher grading. Let me tell you, it was not only the nightlife, but it was the wake up early and grade life as well. So that was something. I don't know, we've got more students this time around. We got even more, so we had way more students at the start of the year, and then at the beginning of the last semester we had even more students. So it's just kind of, you have this idea that, oh, my grades take this long to do, and then they don't. So usually, a lot of teachers will be finished around, on like the day that we're told, like grades are due on this day. But this time we had a couple more than usual that needed an additional day. It's too much. It's just too much. Art AI generator checked out ChatGPT. What did you think of it, Summer? That's why I write stories and I don't draw. Exactly, Meadow. I feel like I'm able to describe things a lot better than I am to draw them. Yeah. It's weird. I think I was pretty good with the military stuff, but apparently, like, I thought I was doing okay, but my drill instructors would not stop. They wouldn't stop making fun of me for my marching. And you think you can't mess up marching that much, but because there's this marching, and then we have to do stuff with our rifles to like make it look really cool. I was just really bad with it apparently, and I couldn't figure out where my body was supposed to be in space. So like, you're supposed to not just stand up straight, but you have to lean back a certain amount, and they kept emphasizing the lean back. So I thought, okay, I can do that. So they were trying to find like the people who wanted to be in the front to like be the best marchers, and I was like, well, sure, I'll volunteer for that. And they had us all just walk across a stage, not a stage, but like in front of them, like it was a stage. And I as soon as I took like 2 steps, they just said next. And I didn't know, and I wanted to ask, which you can't ask, but I wanted to know, what was it that I'm just really bad at walking formally. Like, that's how bad I am, which is weird. I learned dance when I was younger. I enjoy dancing. I guess I'm not that good at it, but I really like it. I have fun with it, but it does take me a really long time to learn things. I have a very hard time mirroring people, so every time I have an instructor, I have to have them turn around, so I'm not mirroring them. I have to follow their movement, So that's something, yeah. It's exciting. You enjoyed it. You had a hard time pulling yourself away. What were some of the prompts that you gave it, Summer? I'm just curious. My sis said the cherry blossoms along the river in Andong is amazing. I believe it. Gosh, it's been so long since I've been to Andong. And I don't think I really went during a cherry blossom season. But yeah, they're definitely gorgeous. They're just gorgeous. Thankfully they're here now, which is the normal time. I think it was last year they showed up at like March 5th or something. It was really unusual. Really unusual. Yeah, but apparently you can walk like an idiot, and I didn't know that. So that's me. I'm just really very poorly coordinated. Um, I can get enough of the idea to be functional in like a unit. You know what I mean? So if we're all like doing stuff tactically, I'm functional in that sense. I can walk very quietly and quickly. Um, I know how to put on the cami face paint really well because there's like a technique to it. Things like that. That's totally fine. And then with firing a rifle, that's like a series of steps, which is logic. So that for me is okay. Um, I'm a very good shot because to me it's just if you follow the steps that they gave you, then you're gonna hit the target. The end. So you just follow the steps and that's it. So I don't try to feel for it. I don't try to finesse anything. I just try to make it very, very straightforward. So I'm really good with that, but I just can't walk. I don't know what it is. Let's see. I'm easily impressed. I kept asking questions to be answered in 200 words or less. It's really good, and that is something that we're going to be talking about tomorrow for the Patreon live stream. But I do just kind of want to let other people know with ChatGPT, that's something we really had to think about readjusting our entire teaching approach. So I did not expect the rise of the AI machines to have to. I mean, somebody at some point in history would have to deal with this. I just didn't think I was going to be that person. So that's interesting. But yeah, it's kind of fun to be there. Like as a history teacher, it's fun to be in this point of history where something so fundamental to our approach to school has changed, and then we have to adapt to that. I think this must have been how teachers felt when the internet started getting really big, and you were able to do learning on it. You could read papers and you could read encyclopedias on the internet. And so they had to adjust and say, well, wait a minute, this isn't for just a bunch of nerds and losers. It's also for students to use and exploit. How do we make sure, how do we fold that into the format? How do we make sure these students know what's a scientific source, that kind of thing. So then just suddenly everybody had to fold the internet in. So I guess that's where we're at. We're folding in the AI stuff. Do you think that you fear mirror neurons than others, or they just work in a different way than you? That's a really good question, Mr. Wireless. I've done some reading. I'm not like an expert or anything, but I've done some reading and writing about mirror neurons and autism. And it seems that for people with autism, I'm not saying I have autism. I might, but I'm not saying I do. I've never been diagnosed or anything. But it was just something I was reading that with people that have autism, they have mirror neurons, but the connections with them are not very good. So it was just talking about different ways to deal with a person that has this issue. So with autism, there are two things to kind of remember if you're dealing with someone with autism. Number one, for children with autism that have to learn how to do something like by mimicking, they don't do very well with non-literal stuff. So I'll give you an example. This is like my coffee stirrer, and if I don't know if you can even see it. I gotta open up my OBS streaming software because I don't know if it's like blending. Okay, you can see it. All right. So if I pretend to brush my teeth, right? You guys understand I'm pretending to brush my teeth with this, but a child with autism has a really hard time with that because they'll say this is for stirring coffee, this isn't a toothbrush. And you say, I know, but we can pretend. And they'll say, but why? Why don't we just use a toothbrush? So they have a hard time mirroring with that. And the other thing is that they will mirror literally. And this is why if you want to teach them like a dance move, you should face away from them so they can follow your directions exactly. And that's something, again, that I was having trouble with, which when I was reading this about the autism stuff, I was like, So, because one of the things that I was having trouble with is, so if there's somebody facing me and they move this way, I don't know that I have to do the opposite with my, like, I don't, you know, it's they're moving their right arm. I have to know to move my right arm, but I don't. I follow their arm. So if they're moving their arm, I follow their arm with my left arm. And that's I don't know, again, even with the paper, it wasn't entirely clear why that is, because again, the mirror neurons are there, but the connections just aren't the best. So what is, you know, so why does it present that way was my question. And I wasn't able to find an answer to that in the papers that I was reading, so, but it just is the case. So if you have to deal with somebody who does have autism, and you're, you know, working with, again, especially with children, you're trying to teach them to do a thing, that can be something to help you. Or if you're both looking at a really big mirror, like a full-length mirror, and you both do the movement together, so they can watch the front of your body, but they're also able to just move with you. So if you move left, they move left, and you're both moving in the same direction. So that's a way around it. Yeah, but it is interesting. They do have mirror neurons. They're just not as connected. Interesting stuff. Let's see. I heard that ChatGPT 4.0 still struggles with location topic. I asked it to recommend some restaurant in my city. It gave me some restaurants in the neighboring city. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why that would be. Maybe can you narrow it down by something like, this is my address. Look for restaurants within a, you know, a 10 mile, 10 kilometer radius. Maybe that would help, maybe. Always struggle with the mirror stuff. Mirroring and dance never got easier for me. Yeah, never. You know, you learn that there's a way to do it, but I think after you're not doing it for a while, you kind of forget the way that you were compensating. And I feel like that's what it is with physical things, with kinesthetic things. I feel like I'm always compensating to get to a B level, you know, like I'm only like 80% okay with it, and I have to do a lot of compensating to get there. So it is interesting. I don't know if you guys know about the multiple intelligences anyway. Those are always kind of fun because people have a tendency to like to learn more about themselves. So with the Gardner's multiple intelligences, find an image, I guess, maybe. Okay. Linguistic verbal. I'm just trying to find a good image that we can like just check out just for fun. Let's try it. Make me nice and small. There we go. And then we can open this guy. Let's just do paint, I guess. I mean, why not? Why not? Then, what am I doing? Sorry, my brain is taking a second. Okay, I think this should work. Yeah, works pretty well. All right, cool. You gave the zip code. It says it can't process currently, so you gave the city name. I got you. Is there like a landmark? I wonder, can you give? I thought someone would mention Extraordinary Attorney Wu by now. Yeah, I don't know how popular that is. The students haven't mentioned it. That's how I know if it's popular. The students will mention it. There was that one show, it translated to We Are All Dead. And I told the students, that's a dumb name. I'm going to call it Zombie School. So it's about these kids that get stuck in a school and they're zombies. So Zombie School. So that one got popular. They were talking about that for a while. And a couple of the queer students were talking about Itaewon Class, I think it was. Yeah. So that's a good time. All right. So let's see. So Visual-spatial, these are similar to what we're kind of talking about with, obviously you see here there's like a person painting, right? So there's there's that ability to translate something from your mind or from reality and to put it into something visual, or have somebody describe something to you verbally and to do it visually. But it's also stuff like being able to understand how items function in three-dimensional space. So a good example of this is I needed to move a sofa out of my apartment, and I was getting some help. And I just said, well, why don't we just lift it and just push it out the door? And one of my friends said, they looked at me like I was dumb, and they said, what are you talking about? There's no way this will fit outside the door. And I looked at the sofa, and I looked at the door, and I said, how can you tell? How can you tell? We didn't try. We didn't take a physical tape measure to measure it. And I just couldn't understand how they could look at the sofa and look at the door and realize that they were different sizes in a way that would stop the sofa from coming outside. I really have a hard time with that. So whenever I do something physically manipulating something in space, I really have to just overly touch it. I wanted to improve with this, so I did buy some cross stitch. A friend of mine's really into cross stitch, so I bought some. I haven't started yet, but I'd like to, because I didn't know how to phrase the question about how do you know, because I bought a cross stitch thing and I thought it would be printed on the fabric, and it wasn't. It was just blank fabric and this template and string, colored string, and I thought, I must have got something wrong. I didn't understand how to turn that image into the paper or onto the fabric. And even now, as I'm saying this, like, I feel like my brain is spinning really fast, and like there's gonna be smoke coming out of my ears, because I have a hard time describing what I can't visualize about it. And I had to end up, when my friend sent me something to show me how she starts it and what she does, and she says, yeah, you just count off 10 and then you make squares. But the squares she made were one line instead of the crossed over X. And I was like there's smoke coming out of my ears. I'm like, oh, okay, hang on, let me save the image, manipulate it in Paint. And I said, is this what you mean? And she said, yeah, it's okay. It took a solid, 5 or 10 minutes for me to even try to ask a question about how to start a cross stitch. Even now, like, my head is hurting just trying to think about how to describe this. So for me, I'm very low with this. But what about for you guys? How are you guys good at it? What are some of the, some really good examples or some really funny, bad examples? Let's see. It's about an attorney with autism, since you mentioned autism. Oh yeah, I'm aware of that. I just I don't know how many students have seen it, because that's the most social interaction I usually get, is with the students. Hello, Atheist Carpenter. Summer says, have you considered how difficulties with spatial relations might play a role in developing BDD? That is an amazing question. And maybe I should do that for my capstone research, because that would be very relevant to me, and I know a bunch of questions that I would have that would be relevant to adding to the paper. Interesting one. Give you guys time to post, but I will move on. So feel free to take your time and write, your answers about your visual spatial ability or lack thereof. And while you guys do that, I will explain what Gardner meant about intelligences. So the reason that they're considered or classified as an intelligence, there's a couple ways that this happens. Number one, there's a place in your brain where this is located. So that means if you get like some kind of brain injury to that area, then your ability to perform that intelligence goes down. So that's one requirement for it. The second one is that it has to be clear for the stages of of improvement. So there's clearly a beginner, an intermediate, and an expert in that type of intelligence. So that's kind of what classifies it there. There were 6 originally, then 8, and there's a 9th one being proposed. Gardner's still alive. He's still working on this stuff. So the next one is linguistic verbal, and that's interesting because it says logical mathematical, but the linguistic verbal one has math anyway. So linguistic verbal, this is exactly how it sounds. That's the lovely thing about Gardner's stuff. It's with phrases that you can just guess pretty well. It's not any complicated terminology. So linguistic verbal, it's just your ability to articulate yourself, put words together, follow directions, give directions, that kind of thing. Yeah, really important, for being a teacher. And I am wondering, do you think, can you think of a YouTuber or somebody who does podcasts and they're not very good with this? I'm trying to think if I can think of somebody besides Amberlynn Reed. Amberlynn Reed is not very linguistically gifted. I think she's better with bodily kinesthetic than I am. Yeah, and Visual-spatial. So she's a YouTuber. One of the things she likes to do is build these Lego sets, and for me, those are really difficult to build. I have such a hard time with it. I bought a small Lego kit to try to do it, and it's really hard. It's so hard. Yeah, I have a very hard time putting together Legos. If I just put them together for fun and I have an idea in my head, that's a little bit easier, but to follow the instructions and put them together, really difficult. But she's really good with it, so I think that's a higher point for her. But for her linguistic verbal stuff, I mean, she has a very difficult time pronouncing words, remembering how to pronounce words, very difficult remembering grammatical structure. So she'll say something like, I have ate, instead of I have eaten or I ate. So those are some common, that's one that's really common that she messes up. There's just a way she pronounces certain things, like instead of lymph nodes, it's lymph noids, that kind of thing. And there was somebody had said something by how I pronounce heuristics, and it bothered me so much that I couldn't do it. Not that they said it, it was just that I wasn't able to do it, so I worked really hard on being able to do it, because I kept pronouncing it heuristics, just because the way that I had to move my mouth to pronounce heuristics was too, it was too exaggerated for me, and it just kind of made my jaw feel weird. So I just said, well, I'll just do heuristics. And so when somebody pointed it out, I was like, no, I gotta fix this. So I did, and now I can pronounce heuristics. So it's that kind of thing with the linguistic verbals. Like, you care about that pronunciation. You want to be able to present your ideas in a linguistically articulate manner. Yeah. Legos are so technical now. When I was little, they would have about 10 to 15 pages of instructions. Some of the medium sets have 100 to 200 pages. Oh my God. A live lemon. It is a live lemon. Hello, limited light. My son is on the spectrum and he is very good at Legos. Yeah, having autism doesn't mean that you're going to automatically be bad in any of these. It's just, like, for people that have autism, they can dance just fine. But the issue with the movement that we were talking about was just in relation to the mirror neurons specifically. There's a blind YouTuber who tries things for the first time. I saw one where he was fishing. That sounds cool. I used to study Arch, and we were told not to work with drawing and computer programs right away to help with the scale. First 2 years, CAD was completely forbidden. Some teachers advised using grid paper. Yeah, when I was doing my first major was civil engineering, and when I was drafting, that once I figured out the way to transpose things, to rotate them in space, but on a like to take a 2D or 3D image or 3D item and turn it into a 2D image that you're viewing from the front, side, top, rear, and back. Once I figured out how to do that, it got a lot easier. But for me, it's always really, it's difficult because I feel like I can't guess how something would look. Like when they say just rotate it in your mind, I think, yeah, but I don't have all the information. You know, I don't know what, if you show me an item from the front, I don't know what it looks like from the back. How am I supposed to rotate this in my brain if I don't know what's in the back? Am I just supposed to make it up? That doesn't sound very technical. So for me, it was very difficult to do, and it still is. It's still very difficult to do. I don't really understand what people mean when they mentally rotate something. When I think about something, like I'm thinking now about a cup, you know, yeah, I'm looking at it in my mind from the front, from the top, from the bottom, but I'm not thinking about like visually rotating it. I can if I think about it in that sense, but whenever I'm thinking about a 3D item in my mind's eye, I don't automatically go to spinning it around. It's more seeing it in 2D, I guess. Yeah. Let's see, I pronounced it like you did the second time. Did you iterate to do better pronunciation? So for me, with the heuristics, I made, because I was throwing my jaw forward too much. I was doing like a heuristics, and that just, it hurt to do that because you shouldn't be moving your jaw like that, right? So I was thinking, is there another word that I can pronounce that already has this sound? Oh, hero has like this sort of type, this, it's like a H-Y-E, here sound, and I can pronounce hero, so that's what I tried to use that to sort of bridge the gap, and I just kept practicing it. So I just would remember to practice it like at work, and I would just say, okay, heuristics, here, and I would just keep practicing it so I could pronounce heuristics correctly. She has over 1 million subscribers. She pronounces many words incorrectly in each video. That's true, Summer. And so I guess, you know, with YouTube, you don't even have to be linguistically adept. Obviously, there are cooking shows and things where there's no talking, but it is weird that she's a vlogging channel. That's the weird part. So if she was making Legos or showing like, these are my Lego, like build with me, or let's you know, ASMR, clicking Legos and putting them together, that would make a lot of sense, right? But no, she's a vlog channel. Her whole thing is talking to the camera. And it's very interesting to me. I can't rotate it in my mind if I've seen all the faces right. Have you ever heard of aphantasia? That sounds like what I've heard of aphasia. Inability to create mental imagery. Interesting. I don't know if I would have that extreme because it looks like it's just mental imagery entirely. I'm able to do that, just not very three-dimensionally. Yeah, that's all. Just not three-dimensionally. When I dream, it's perfectly fine. I dream in 3D. I interact with the 3D world. It's in color. I can see, I can smell, I can taste, I can hear, and I can feel. So if I get injured in a dream, I feel that. So otherwise, my mental imagery seems to work really well in that sense, but yeah, I don't know. Weird stuff. Interpersonal, intrapersonal. Again, these are pretty easy to guess what they are. So interpersonal is just your ability to work well with other people and communicate with them. So you're, I tend to, I've worked really hard on improving interpersonally because I used to be very, very bad at it, and I would get angry about it. So if somebody was being irrational from my perspective, I would get very angry at them for it. like insultingly angry, not violent anger, but just like disgust. Like, you're so stupid. I was such a dick. So, yeah, I used to have big issues with anger, and I used to be really, really, really condescending to other people, until I learned that other people, this is gonna sound very obvious and stupid to even have to make this realization, but other people have completely different backgrounds that shape their mental processes. Mine isn't the best, mine isn't the standard, mine isn't the pinnacle, and neither is theirs. We just approach the same situation with a different lens, and that's kind of how I see it, that we all have a filter on our eyes and on our brain, and our filter can be adjusted over time. It can be adjusted naturally, maybe with aging or puberty or some physical effect, right? Or it can be adjusted with experience. So something that has happened to you or that you know, and then over time we're able to adjust this. This filter becomes adjusted. And I think you can adjust your filter. You can try to see something from another person's perspective. So you kind of try to put their filter on your brain. Yeah, so that's being, really good interpersonally. Really bad interpersonally, probably a lot of the comments that you see. I think the angriest comments on the internet are from people that are bad interpersonally. I think I'm gonna put that statement out there. If you have other, like, if you really disagree with that statement, let me know, because I'm not married to this idea. But I think that I can maybe throw that out there as a general statement. The people that get really pissed off about stuff on the internet are people that have bad interpersonal intelligence or low interpersonal intelligence. Zabakanish, can I call you Zaba? I think it probably about filling in gaps based on similar objects and breaking down simpler shapes. Same with drawing, like you would break down human shapes with cubes, pyramids, triangles, globes. Interesting. That one I can do, and I've taught students to do it. That one I can do, that last part. Interesting. Because that's kind of what I do with language. When there's, especially, living in a country where English is not the main language, but people still communicate with you in English, when people are using the wrong word or something, you really have to try to run through your brain and think what, I kind of think about it like just scrolling through words, and then like there's a list of words in English, and then there's a list of words in English but how they're pronounced in Korean, and then a smaller list goes with it that are their words in Korean. So it's like you have to know the Korean way they would say something, so that's why they made the choice of the word they did. Or is it a word in English and it sounds like this, but really they mean it another way? So I'll give you an example of both. One of the words that we would translate to convenience is the word is comfortable for Korean. So if to be comfortable like in a chair, or to use something in a convenient manner, like to have online banking or something, that's comfortable as well. So we would translate that way. So if somebody says it's comfortable to me that or I like living in Korea, all the tech makes it comfortable to me. In English, we would think about technology like, some kind of something with your vehicle, something with like regulating temperature in your house, or something like physically comfortable. But what they're talking about is all the conveniences, right? So that's one where you have to know what they mean in Korean so you can understand why they chose that word for English. The other one where it's like it's pronounced the same, the word officer and official, with Korean pronunciation, they are pronounced exactly the same way. So with Korean pronunciation, you emphasize the first syllable. So both of them. So if we just change just that, we have officer and official. And then if you turn it into the Korean LR, and that's usually dropped off if it's at the end of a word or at the end of a syllable, like the word tire is tayo. So officer, officer. and then the word or the letter F becomes a P because there's no F in Korean, so it's opisha, opisha. And so sometimes for words that end in a really specific R or L, it will get added in. So then you have opisar, opisar. So it's opisar, opisar. And so you're trying to think, do they mean official or do they mean officer? So then you just ask, you know, and then of course it's, well, what's the difference? So yeah, but then again, like you're running through all these words. So is that what you're talking about for filling in the gaps with the shapes? Are you thinking like, have I seen an item like this before? And then maybe you think about what the item could be used for. So there's like another, because in my head there's columns. There's columns of words in English with Korean pronunciation, and then words in Korean. So do you have like these columns you can scroll through that are like items that look similar, items that have a similar function, and maybe novel items that might be similar, and then you just try to fill in the gaps that way? Is that how that works? Hello, Chris. Heuristics, yes. Let's see. My friend requires building a lot of mental, or my field requires building a lot of mental imagery. You don't have to share, but if you do want to share, that would be interesting with what kind of field you have. I get frustrated when people are so incorrect or irrational that they act bigoted or hurt others. Definitely agree, Atheist Carpenter. One thing I try to advise my students, because sometimes they bring up stuff in the media that's really sensational, and they say, you know, teacher, did you hear about this? What do you think? And I just say, you know, this sounds really crazy, right? And they say, oh, yes, teacher, very crazy, right? I have learned most of the time, if somebody tells you something and it sounds so enragingly irrational, like it sounds so crazy you get pissed off, you probably don't understand it, or they're not explaining it very well. That's what I've learned. So if somebody says something that sounds just insane, you're probably missing some key information, because most things that people believe have a level of reasonability to it, just as the nature of being a human being, right? We just tend to be logical. We're not always, but we tend to have logic, right? Now, the logic that we use may not be reasonable, but there is a way that a person got to that point. There was, you know, a set of steps they went through. They didn't just start at point X. They went through point A, point B, point C, and you probably agree with point A, point B, and point C too. So you have to see where you diverge. But for people that are bad interpersonally, they don't accept, or they don't consider their understanding is wrong, or that maybe the person they're speaking with was not very good at articulating it. A really good example is defund the police, what that actually means. And then when it's explained, because I tried to explain it to my father, same with the hashtag Black Lives Matter. And he said, oh, well, I mean, that sounds very reasonable. How come they don't just say that? And I said, because that doesn't fit as a hashtag. That's part of the problem. So I think that with social media, especially with social media that lends itself to being short, such as YouTube Shorts, TikTok, and the limited space that you can write for a tweet, I think that encourages people to take shortcuts in their presentation. And those shortcuts are okay if you are of the same subgroup. But if you're not, you don't understand all of the behind the scenes stuff that, like, it's implied in the video, but you don't understand what's implied because you don't have a background in it. So for people that do understand what's implied, the post or the tweet or whatever seems really reasonable. But for people that don't know all the background information, it seems really unreasonable. And that's where I think people get frustrated, is because they don't see that the people that agree with it have more background information, and the other side doesn't see that the people that disagree with it don't have that background information. And so that would be that interpersonal intelligence, to take a step back and say, well, wait a minute, let's make sure we're on the same page, you know. Hello, Casey and JJ. Thanks for jumping in. I am thrilled that... Tell Casey to message me. Tell him to message me. On Kakao Talk. And you should message me too. On Kakao Talk. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you guys are there. Yeah, I don't want to go... I'm not going to divulge personal stuff, but thank you for joining. I'm really stoked to see you. Let's see. I don't get frustrated as long as it's due. It doesn't have your cacao. My cacao is... What is my cacao? Do you guys have Discord, JJ? If you have Discord, he can send me a message there, or you can send me a message there, and then I can send you something. Or if you have Twitter or Instagram, Twitter and Instagram is Ms. Lemon 42, and Discord is double espresso pound. There it is. So shoot me something there, and then I will, yeah, let you know. Let's see. So Phantom says, I don't get frustrated as long as it's due to honest ignorance. I try to point out the harm, but getting frustrated usually doesn't help me get anywhere. Oh yes, especially with migraines. Doesn't really help. Zabashinish. Sorry, I don't want to ruin your name, but I also don't know if I can just call you Zab. Like that analogy, I was initially talking about how the human mind tries to find patterns, and some optical illusions rely on the brain filling in gaps when the objects are incomplete. I gotcha, okay. Yeah, absolutely, JJ. The next one's the intrapersonal one. And so that, it's knowing yourself, knowing how to describe your feelings, excuse me, your thoughts. Okay, I'll call you Zaba. Knowing how to describe your, you know, why do you do the things that you do? That's really important to know, you know, and of course this can help you with interpersonal, it can help you with linguistic verbal, to some extent I think the logical one as well. But yeah, with the intrapersonal, this one is a very important one, and I think we take it for granted that we just understand ourselves. So I think that's where stuff like tarot card reading, cold reading, therapy, not to say that therapy and tarot cards are the same idea, but they share a commonality in that you are reading the person in a way. And some people are really just blown away, like, wow, how did you know that about me? Like, I didn't even realize that about myself. So that would be somebody who's kind of lower interpersonal. Now, of course, just because you have good interpersonal intelligence doesn't mean you know everything about yourself. So going to therapy, for example, is still really good and beneficial and helpful. But yeah, this idea that, well, it's just me, this is just how I am, those are not good or high on the interpersonal intelligence. Someone who's higher on it would be able to recognize what's going on with like a undesirable behavior and figure out why they're performing this behavior, and then take steps against it to push themselves in a different direction. So somebody would be really good at making change. Someone that you might consider having good willpower would be somebody that has a good intrapersonal. Logical, mathematical. Logic and math are very, very tied together. And it doesn't just mean that you're good at math. It means that you're good at seeing step by step. You're good at understanding different variables, and also good with time. People who have problems like, what's the word? I totally forgot the word. Dyscalculia. It's like dyslexia, but for math and logic. They tend to have trouble understanding sequences, including sequences of time. So For example, I have a friend that if we're supposed to meet at a certain time, let's say noon, we're supposed to meet at 12 o'clock, and it takes my friend 1 hour to go from her house to the subway to my subway stop. She would therefore have to leave no later than 11 o'clock so she can arrive at 12, right? But she doesn't really understand that. So if she'll sleep in because she feels tired, and then she'll eventually wake up at 10:45, get dressed, get ready, and then leave her house at 11:30, 11:45. And she doesn't predict that she's going to arrive at 12:45. And that is really interesting. That's really interesting. So it's not that she's being rude. It's not that she's being, it's not that she's stupid. She just doesn't really understand that I want to be there at 12 requires I must leave at 11. She doesn't get that. Another example is she was driving, and when we were trying to change highways, so we kind of took this off ramp, but she cut off a really big work truck, like a gigantic, like a big dump truck. And because we were turning on this off ramp, we had to suddenly slow down because it kind of curved, so we had to suddenly slow down. And this truck honked its horns, and it got really close to us. And I told her, you have to speed up, you have to speed up. And after, she got kind of scared, this thing looks like it's about to hit us. And so eventually we're safe. And I said, why would you cut off a truck like that, knowing that we're going to slow down? And she said, what do you mean? I said, these trucks can't just stop. And she said, oh, how could you know that? And I was blown away. How could you not, right? It's a heavy thing. It can't stop really quickly. Maybe you haven't driven a big truck like that, but don't you know that heavy things can't stop fast if they're moving quickly? So she couldn't guess that. So that would be like an example of the logical mathematical, but someone who's lower on that intelligence. Now for her, she's much higher visual-spatial than I am. So it is interesting that for these different intelligences, you can be quite low in one and very high in another, where other measures of intelligence tend to find if you're low in some type of intelligence that the test measures, then you tend to be low in other types of intelligence. So Gardner's intelligences are pretty different. So linguistics is math, and math is not, yeah, right. Math is science. I used to be a mathlete, but I was terrible at estimating time. I still do. Therefore, I can't learn musical instruments. Well, the musical one, that one's different. But yeah, the estimating time, that's one, yeah, you can just feel. So for me, musical was much higher. But I don't know how much higher it is, actually, because I'm really bad at hearing sounds, like tones. And like if you play a note, I don't know what note you're playing. I have no idea. But I played 12 instruments. I don't anymore, but I used to. And I got a scholarship for playing bassoon. So I again, this was like, oh, people thought maybe you're going into something musical. No, it was just a hobby. I love music. I think music is a way to scream in a socially acceptable manner. And I don't just mean singing. Like if you play an instrument, especially a wind instrument, it's like screaming and just letting out all these emotions. I really like it. I really do. But like for example, if I'm supposed to like be in tune, and so you play like one person's playing a note and they're in tune, and so everybody else has to tune their instrument to that one person. I would just, I know how to tune an instrument, which the physical method, but I didn't know, like, am I flat or am I sharp? Eventually I could hear it, but it took a lot of work and I can't hear it anymore. I can hear that I'm out of tune because you hear that wong, 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 that warbling. but I don't know why I'm out of tune. Yeah, I know the things that make you out of tune, like your instrument isn't physically warmed up, those kinds of things, but I don't know which way I'm out of tune. So I don't even know if I am good at musical, even though I was able to play a bunch of instruments. But maybe because of the logical mathematical, maybe for that reason I was better with time. I never thought of it that way. It's really good. Sometimes ChatGPT is a lack of the logical mathematical trait. I wonder where ChatGPT would score actually on all of these. It does take all kinds. That is the thing about humans. My understanding is that ChatGPT can only remember the last 2048 tokens, so I could see it not being good at logical. That's interesting. So bodily kinesthetic, that's the one that you're aware of yourself in 3D space. And so there is a sense for that. It's called proprioception, and that's just being aware of yourself, where you are in 3D space. And so this one, if Summer is still here, this one I think would really be associated with BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, but I'm not sure. But this is the one that I would check out. So you just kind of understand where you are in space and then how you appear to others. So if you move a certain way, there's an effect that will give, like if you're a dancer. People like this tend to be really good at sports as well. And I guess dancing is a sport. But yeah, this is a bodily kinesthetic person. So they're just really good at understanding how to move their body and understanding where they are in three-dimensional space. Yeah. This one I'm not good at. My drill instructor's laughing at me. And naturalistic. So this one is a newer one, and it's interesting. It does have to do with noticing differences and being able to catalog differences in nature. So you notice certain patterns in nature, and then you notice like differences in color, differences in what am I thinking? Differences in color, texture, size. Excuse me. And that sort of thing, to understand like what's the best way to nurture something. So this could be raising animals, this could be growing plants, that kind of thing. So that's a newer one. And the other one they want to add is like spiritual and transcendental. So what do you guys think about adding the idea of a spiritual intelligence? So let's make sure we understand what it is. Spiritual intelligence, Gardner. So if we're adding to this, okay, the idea of spiritual intelligence, Gardner's is existential intelligence. But it's like, you can either consider it a type of emotional intelligence, or for the existential intelligence, these are things like, the reason that, again, it's difficult to know, is this its own category? Because I feel like some of the stuff for the existential and transcendental would fall under logical mathematical. Stuff like, if we want to improve, or if we don't make a fix to this today, then 50 years in the future, there's going to be a problem. I feel like that would fall under logical mathematical. Or trying to improve something like improving teaching method, I feel like that would fall under interpersonal. So this is why it's still debated. So the Gardner's intelligences, I think it was 1982, I think, when they were first introduced. Naturalistic was introduced pretty recently. I don't remember when, but pretty recently. And then there's still, do we want to add this other one? Yeah. I don't want to look at that bright screen anymore. A few years ago, I heard about an interesting medical practice with helping children with the development of language and movement being two things to aid one another. Oh, that's interesting. I think it would depend on what type of learner you are. I think it would. What type of learner are you guys? Are you the type of person that listens to things? Do you have to draw things? Do you have to pace? Do you learn better in environments that are noisy? You have to listen to music, that kind of thing. I was thinking the very same phrase, but wanted to see what it meant first. Right. And that's, yeah, we can't just jump to like, oh, spiritual. What does that mean? You know? Yeah, other people that talk about spiritual intelligence, author Stephen Benedict outlined the concept as a perspective offering a way to bring together the spiritual and the material that is ultimately concerned with the well-being of the universe and all who live there. So again, wouldn't that be interpersonal, right? I think we got to be really careful with words like spiritual. Yeah. Variations of spiritual intelligence are sometimes used in corporate settings as a means of motivating employees and providing a non-religious, diversity-sensitive framework for addressing issues in the workplace. According to Stephen Covey, spiritual intelligence is the central and most fundamental of the intelligences because it becomes the source of guidance for the others. So Dana Zohar has 12 underlying principles of spiritual intelligence. So let's see if we agree as atheists. Self-awareness, knowing what I believe in and value and what deeply motivates me. Spontaneity, living in and being responsive to the moment. Being vision and value-led, acting from principles and deep beliefs and living accordingly. Holism, seeing larger patterns, relationships and connections, having a sense of belonging. Compassion, having the quality of feeling with and deep empathy. Celebration of diversity, valuing other people for their differences, not despite them. Field independence, standing against the crowd and having one's own convictions. Humility, having the sense of being a player in a larger drama of one's true place in the world. Tendency to ask fundamental why questions, needing to understand things and get to the bottom of them. Ability to reframe, standing back from the situation or problem and seeing the bigger picture or wider context. Positive use of adversity, learning and growing from mistakes, setbacks, and suffering. Sense of vocation, feeling called upon to serve or to give something back. Does that sound like anything you would describe as spiritual? Let's see. Some men are not naturalistic. They like all women, no differentiation. I learned things through reading mostly, that and trying things out. Yeah, definitely doing. I like to do the doing. That one is interesting because I tried that approach to help the students write a paper in APA format, which is different format from other stuff. Basically, it's the stuff that, especially in the United States, a lot of scientific papers are written in a very similar format. APA specifically is for psychology, but it's just like a type of format for scientific writing. And I just threw the students in and just was like, don't worry about making these mistakes because I know you guys are going to get way too hung up on this stuff. And I said, just try, just write. And I gave them a really loose outline and they were only going to be graded based on that. So if they made mistakes that really should not be in APA format, but I didn't cover it, I would fix it, tell them what it is, but not mark them down. This worked for 2 students. The rest of them felt so lost. I ended up writing a template for them. And I said, all right, well, I just want to try it. We'll see what happens, what works, what doesn't. We got to try different stuff. Speech therapists making young children play on jungle gyms and advising exercises that train your balance, also training speech impediments being somehow connected or related to ones in the brain. That makes sense to me because if you're understanding your body in a physical space, that is understanding your tongue, your jaw, your lips in a physical space too. Yeah. We occasionally get about 20-minute cartoons at work to explain the principles of changing your password to something hard to guess. If they give me half an A4, I could read that in 30 seconds. Yeah. I think spiritual is really similar to supernatural in its usage. I would agree. And that's one reason I don't, I feel like I don't know. I feel like the fields are already so um, muddled. Rats, we were talking about different types of intelligence, and we're talking about the idea of a spiritual intelligence, because that's being proposed. But after we read some of the descriptions of spiritual intelligence, I didn't think it sounded like anything that I would define as spiritual, and some of the other folks agree. So that was an interesting one. I really worry sometimes about psychology because it's a science. You know, it's a science. But people are like, they really misuse a lot of the terms so frequently. And I'm sure you guys have seen it. You know, somebody who likes to take a lot of pictures of themselves and upload selfies a lot, that people get, they say, oh, you know, you must be a narcissist. No, no, that is not what narcissistic personality disorder is. And anybody who's encountered somebody who has NPD, no. Or saying that somebody is so bipolar because they flip their feelings a lot. That is not what bipolar is. If somebody gets really excited about something, people call that manic. Gaslighting, that's another one that I've seen a lot. People say gaslighting when they just mean lying. And they feel like using the term gaslighting, it like makes their claim, their accusation of lying, like more weighty. You know, like, you're not just lying, you're gaslighting me. No. Gaslighting requires a power dynamic to the point that the victim questions their understanding of reality. So somebody on a YouTube video that lies, and then you say, oh, but you said in this other video, blah, 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 you're gaslighting your audience. No. A person who's a liar that forgets their lies, this doesn't make me question my sanity and my understanding of reality. That is not gaslighting. I used to be a rowing instructor. When you instruct an older person, you start doing parts of the motion, arms, the back, then legs, and slowly build it up to the full motion. And then you put them in a nice, wide, stable boat. Kids, on the other hand, you chuck in a single skull, tell them to get on with it. Nobody even remembers the movie Gaslight, yeah, for sure. Man says spiritual when he's an atheist, but open to date Christian women. Yeah, I have intelligence. What do you want to know? That reminded me of that Trump statement where he didn't want to get briefed. He didn't want his intelligence briefing because he said, I'm smart enough already. Some phrase like that. The third says, nowadays, if a person accused of gaslighting says they're not doing it, that automatically makes them guilty in the eye of the accuser. I laugh because it's ridiculous, but it's not funny. But I'm laughing at the absurdity of it. Yeah, that's really messed up. Another one is positive psychology. So this got misunderstood as think positive, and it becomes really negative in doing so. It's like people that avoid thinking about negative things and addressing them properly. So that is, you know, it's just basically a type of bottling up your emotions. What positive psychology actually is, it's the idea of, okay, a lot of psychology and therapy and psychiatry, this is focused on addressing what's wrong with the person. So because we're focusing so much on this is what's wrong with you, the person kind of starts to believe that there is this wrong thing with me, and they can generalize that. So they can say, you know, I'm not good at X because of my mental illness, so I'm also not good at Y, and I'm also not good at Z. Positive psychology, it's to focus on what are some things that we can do to improve your life in addition to your therapy. So we're not just focusing on the fact that there's something going on in your brain that's not helpful. We're also focusing on what are some things that you can do that are helpful. So one example of this would be making sure that you're eating regularly and healthily. So for some people that have certain mental disorders, they can really just forget to eat, or they're too depressed to eat. They lose their appetite if they're too stressed, those kinds of things. Now, eating a healthy diet is not going to fix what's wrong with you, right? But it's going to prevent it from getting worse, you know? And I tried to describe this to the students as, you know, if you've already got a problem in your brain with producing the right chemistry, by depriving it of the basic building blocks of that chemistry, you're not giving yourself any help there. But if you provide yourself the basic building blocks of those chemicals that your brain desperately needs, yeah, you're still not producing them in the right way, but you're still producing them, you know. So that would be something like positive psychology, making sure that you have a regular, you know, sleep-wake schedule. Again, a healthy diet. What are things that you are good at? You know, so instead of focusing on, let's talk about how you suck, it's also adding in, well, how are you awesome too? And so this helps kind of build a person's confidence, and it helps give them that boost that they may need in order to address their actual mental illnesses, right? So that's what positive psychology is. But then you get this idea like, oh, if you just have positive intentions, then like, you know, the law of attraction says that you'll just get all the good things. No, that is not it. And I think that's the problem with psychology. It's this idea that it's not really a science. It's a soft science. You know, no, it's a science. You know, it's just, I think people, it's kind of like, it's like how people misunderstand evolution and think that it's just a guess. That's how I feel about a lot of people think about psychology. Did I just compare you to Donnie Duck? No, I didn't compare you. Just the statement reminded me, not you. Hello, Will Philippi. Hope you didn't miss much. We're just talking about just stuff, just things and stuff. Do you feel that psychology is akin to spirituality with the curtain pulled back, almost like it's explaining the magic tricks inside our brains? That is a really good question, Sacred Cow Diner. I would say psychology is to personal spirituality as cosmology is to creationism, if that makes sense. So the idea that everything's a mystery and God works in mysterious ways and God did it, with cosmology, we're able to kind of understand, you know, there's actually a step-by-step process for how this stuff happens. And so I think with psychology, when we have these spiritual experiences, quote unquote, psychology can explain it. There's like places in the brain where this happens. And I would be hard pressed to find a religious person who believes your spirit resides in your brain. Because if it's a part of your brain, then when your brain dies, so too your spirit dies, right? So there's certain parts that are activated during certain things like meditation and so on. Yeah, and we can really just misunderstand that. Yeah. That reminds me of the Penn and Teller version of the ball, or cups and ball strip with transparent cups. I've seen that and I don't remember what it was. I just remember I've seen it. Psychology can be tested and repeatable. It can be, it is, but it's also necessary to repeat. That's the thing. So I think that's where people, there's like a difference there. You know, gravity doesn't depend on cultural norms. You know what I mean? But you're like how humans behave in a society does depend on cultural norms. So there's behavior that people exhibit in different cultures, and because cultures change over time, these ideas that we have in psychology have to be retested over time. So one really good example was the Asch conformity experiment. And this is like a classic one. So let's share it here. Can we share it here? I don't know. Copy image. Okay. Looks like we can share it. There we go. So with the Asch conformity experiment, they're just asking which line is the same length as the line on the left. And so for those of you that are just listening and not watching, I'll explain it. So we see a line, and it's of a given height. And then there's line A, which is the same height line B, which is a taller height, and line C, which is a shorter height. And these are pretty obvious. One of them is clearly the same length as or same height as the question line. B is obviously taller, C is obviously shorter. However, when they have people in this group, and the group would be like between 5 to 12, but the average, I guess, was 8 or 9. So let's say 8. 7 of the people in the experiment are actually part of the experiment. Only the 8th person is really the participant, like they're really being tested on. So all the other people know to answer the wrong answer. So when the obvious answer here is A, but everybody else answered B, and then number 8, the person who's actually the experiment, right, who's being experimented on, this person now is answering last. So it's clearly A, but everybody in front of them said B pretty confidently. And now you're the 8th person. And I forget, it was around 75% of the time, 73% of the time, people would say B. They would just agree with the group, even though B is obviously the wrong answer. And so then they would ask them later on, why did you choose B? Did you believe B is correct? And people would say, no, I knew A was correct, but it's just, I wasn't sure, was I at the wrong angle? Oh, this wasn't important enough to argue about, things of that nature. So this experiment was done, though, during this era in the United States called McCarthyism, when people were really worried about communism, and this idea of like conforming, don't stick out, don't look weird because this could look bad for you socially. These kinds of things were in the society at the time. So when they retested this experiment in the 80s, and then there was, anybody can do this experiment, but just as time goes on and creativity, individuality becomes more valued in especially Western cultures, the adherence to what the rest of the group is saying, that goes down. So if you do this experiment today, yeah, you still have people that are going to just go with the group and say B, but much fewer of them compared to when this study was done in the 50s. Yeah. So it's pretty interesting stuff. But again, it really just gives an example of, something like this that, it's such a classic experiment. It needs to be retested. Yeah, we can't just take it for granted. That's all right. Welcome to class, Wounded Monk. You're mad. I swear I've seen this work on adults. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a few. So I recently wrote, not a full paper, but it was about the conformity experiment and collectivist societies. And the thing that I really wanted to emphasize about collectivism, and there's this idea that people say that that people don't want to rock the boat because they want to promote social harmony, and that's not the case. It's really to reduce unnecessary arguments. It's kind of like the idea of, is this the hill that I really want to die on? And so there'll be places like in the United States where people will sue somebody on principle, right? They'll sue the person and they'll pursue it. They'll pursue it even though it costs them time, it costs them money, it costs them stress, but they do it because on principle, this person just deserves to have some kind of punishment because I feel wronged. So that would be a really individualist society. A collectivist society, it's more like, yeah, this person's wrong and I'm not condoning what they're doing, but is it really worth that effort for me to show them that they're wrong, for them to be legally penalized with a fee, and then ultimately they're not going to change anyway? Is that really worth my time? So we can see it's not promoting harmony, it's more like not promoting disharmony. So with this line experiment, you end up with this thing where people are saying, yeah, it's line B, it's line B, it's line B. And then this study in Japan in the 80s, yeah, line B, because it's really like, who cares? And that was one criticism of the Ash experiment. Another one was that the Ash experiment was done in all white men in the United States. So they did another one with women. And the women's one, I think the conformity, I forget. So I'm not going to give you the answer to that. Look it up. We can look it up. Let's look it up. Because I don't want to put an idea in your head and then I'm wrong. Ash conformity experiment with women. Effects of gender. What was it? Create situations, pre-university. The degree of women's conformity under inferior social position was shown higher than men's, but under superior social position, there was not a meaningful difference. So basically, they have like a lot of different jobs that they showed. So they had lower positions, like there was a person who was unemployed with a diploma, a person who was, you know, just like a homemaker, somebody who was just a low wage worker, and I mean just here because that's how we see them in society, kind of lower. And then we have other people that are like a computer software engineer, a 6-year medical student, someone that has a doctoral student in psychology. So when the person that's socially inferior is being tested, they have a higher tendency to agree with the group, especially for women. They have a higher tendency to agree with the group. But if they're in a superior position socially, then men and women both perform similarly. So the position matters. Yeah, it's interesting. God, expecting more people to join in, but you're all a bunch of nonconformists. The Milgram experiment is my favorite. That one's scary. That's a scary experiment. It's especially scary living in Korea with the Sewol ferry situation. That's especially scary. But I don't think we could recreate the Milgram experiment today, because one of the after effects of the Milgram experiment, let's pretend that you were one of the people in the study, you're one of the participants, and you pushed all the way up to the highest voltage, and you really believe that you severely injured or killed a person. And then you're told, no, it's okay. He didn't really feel anything. He was just an actor. It's okay. Anyway, go home, have a good day. What are you going to think for the rest of the day, for the rest of the week? Wow, just because somebody in a white lab coat told me calmly, it is important that we finish the experiment, I was ready to kill a man. And that was a really negative outcome from the Milgram experiment, was the after effects of the people that were in the participant group. So that's why I don't think we could necessarily recreate the Milgram experiment today, at least not exactly as it was presented, just because we can't create experiments that could end up harming the people that participate in the experiment physically or mentally. So I'm doing some stuff related to education. Why are we looking at these lines? A is the same as the left. I'm confused. Yes, so A is the same as the line on the left. This is part of the Ash conformity experiment. And so what's being tested is if you're in a group of people and everybody's giving the wrong answer, B, will you also give the wrong answer B, or will you give the correct answer A? Will you conform to what the group is saying even though you know it's incorrect? Or will you say what you believe is correct? So that was what's being tested. So it's B on purpose because it's wrong. For some people too, that was a criticism, was these are just lines, you know, this isn't like, you know, religion, politics, your job. But actually when they did those tests, it did show very similarly, unfortunately. I don't think it's possible to sue someone in principle anymore, or at least the court would reject the paperwork. Civil suits require specific demonstrable damages, good. But there are definitely bogus lawsuits with ridiculous damage claims. I think it's not even the idea of being able to sue on principle. Even the person being willing to sue on principle, that would still be a demonstration of this difference. So a person would be willing to go through all this trouble to make someone receive some kind of punitive damage. That's the problem. Or that's the difference, I mean. My favorite part of the Milgram experiment is that many people actually said no, so there is hope. Yes, but most people didn't. And the thing that I didn't like about the Milgram experiment was there were some people that were not comfortable with it because they didn't want to be liable. But once they were told, no, we're conducting the experiment. This isn't going to be on you. Whatever happens, it's just, the person signed a waiver. It's not your fault. And then the person was like, well, okay, but it's not on me if something happens. So they were willing to continue the experiment. I don't think they were wanting to kill or harm anybody, but their main issue was, okay, but if I go through with this, what's my outcome? Which is interesting because the question is really, if I shock this guy enough that he is permanently damaged, severely damaged, or he dies, I just want to make sure that I'm not going to jail. And I feel like the question should stop with, well, wait a minute, if the guy gets injured, I shouldn't do this. But again, when people are in that situation. I see interesting experiment. I want to think I would still say A. That's the problem, Ratsa. We all feel like we would have a certain answer, but in different situations, we just don't. So, I mean, I've been in situations where I have, like in a class, for example, I always felt like, look, I think the answer is A, and I think you're all dumb because I was a real jerk when I was younger. But also, if it's not A, then tell me how it's not A, so that way I can learn something. So for me, I would always stick to my guns in that sense. But in other cases, like certain things at work, and this is kind of a way too to describe the idea of collectivism not promoting disharmony as opposed to promoting harmony. There were some times when arguing, you just know it's not going to get you anywhere, so you just say, whatever, let's just get it over with. So for example, let's say that your superior promised you that every day you guys have to clean up for a week, but then the next week you're not going to have to do this cleaning up. And so cleaning up, you have to walk around the building, picking up things like trash and cigarette butts with your bare hands out of the grass. That was called a police call. I don't know why we called it that, but it's called a police call. So we had a police call around the barracks, for example. So let's say next week starts and your superior says, okay guys, we're doing a police call. Now you all know, wait a minute, we were promised this was going to be finished last week. What do you mean we have to do it again this week? But if you argue, it's not going to fix it. You know what I mean? So you just accept it. Because everybody hates it. Everyone wants it done. And then when you're done, you're done. And then you can go do something you like. So if somebody's arguing for 10 minutes, the only thing that happens is you've delayed our off time by 10 minutes. So I think in some cases, yeah, I just go with it, because it's not worth arguing about. And I think that's what we have to remember. In some cases, it is important to be right. But in other cases, it's just important to promote group cohesion. That's just how it is. And that's one issue I see with the Ash experiment is, yeah, maybe a lot of people did go with the line thing because, again, it's who cares, But if it was something like their child needing medical treatment and being denied medical treatment because the doctor was saying, no, I don't think your kid's really sick, you're not just going to say, well, okay, you're the doctor. You're going to go try to find another person to actually see your kid, So for certain things that are really important, even passive people become, very motivated and even aggressive. Let's see what you guys are saying here. I once put forward the opinion that a single person could be right, but the majority was always against it. I'm not familiar with that quote. I would argue, but in my case, that may be largely due to autism, so I don't respond as expected in social situations. That's another one, right? So this would be a really good one to test in people that have autism. I have a business idea to run by you. Twitter, but instead of paying for verification, you can pay to silence another for a period of time. Oh, that'll make you a lot of money. That'll make you too much money. Yeah. Have you heard of Elizabeth Loftus and her work on memory? In her experiments, they've implanted false memories of being lost in a mall as a child and needed to talk to police. Don't know how that could have been ethical. Yeah, the false memories one's really interesting. It's really interesting. And for me, that's the most shocking part of the Mandela effect. If you guys don't know what that conspiracy is, let me know. But the idea that no, it's not my memory being faulty. It's that there's like phasing in and out of dimensions, or the government is secretly trying to trick us or something. I don't know why people value. I mean, I guess I do know why people value their memory, because your memories make up who you are and also who other people are. Around this time of the year, and it seems to be getting earlier and earlier every year. This is around the time of the year that my sister died, and I feel like, the idea of don't speak ill of the dead, I don't like that, because sometimes, or every time, the dead isn't perfect. You know what I mean? So to basically elevate this person to an angel just because they died, to me that doesn't make any sense, and I find it offensive to the person's memory, because the memory is all we have left. And so I try to remember my sister as accurately as I can. That doesn't mean that I hated her. It just means that I want to remember her for who she was, not who she could have been, who I may have wished her to be, or what have you. So I would say that to have an idea that I had a false memory about her, I think it would be mildly devastating. A lot of atheists say they could not believe if they wanted to. I have my doubts about that. I agree. I think that you can convince yourself of something if you have the right motivation, but the motivation differs depending on the person. I mentioned this before. After seeing a broken bike in a car, many children said there was an accident, although they didn't see it. Absolutely. There's another, I could look up the video, but I don't think it would provide anything other than taking up time. Basically, they had some people in a video, or sorry, on a set, a movie set, and they had a car that drove by. It was a stunt car driver, it was part of it. It wasn't anything dangerous. And it hits another car, and then two main characters kiss, and like that's supposed to be the big ending. So they had these extras in the movie. And so again, they have this crash, right? So they asked them, how far do you think or how fast do you think the car was going when it smashed into the other car? And then they also asked a different group, how fast do you think the car was going when it bumped into the other car? And just using that difference in phrasing, this ended up causing people to think, oh, it was going like 60 miles an hour, like 80 kilometers an hour. Oh, it was only going about 20 miles an hour, like 30 kilometers an hour. So this huge, number one, we're not a good judge of speed. That's one issue. But for some reason, we think we are, but we're not. And the other one is when those ideas are put into our head, just with those two different words, and that's the thing called framing. And this is why police interrogations are filmed, because they need to see how the police are putting ideas out there. If they continue to implant ideas into the person's head, especially ideas of like, well, maybe you don't remember because you were drunk, they can create a pretty realistic scenario where the person believes they committed a really serious crime, and it's devastating to them. One really interesting one I read about fake or false memories and implanting memories was about people who believed they were abducted by UFOs. And the reason it's important to study this is because even if this isn't true, which, they don't say it's not true, but they just say it's very unlikely to be true, right? Science words, So, yeah, it's really unlikely that people were abducted by UFO or by aliens, taken in a UFO, medically experimented on, then returned to their bed. That's really unlikely. However, the people believe this happened, and that has to be taken seriously. So maybe the claim doesn't have to be taken seriously, but the fact that the person is having psychological effects from this belief, that's what has to be taken seriously. So yeah, it's an interesting field. My late fiance, I want to keep memories real. The bad times with the good. I worry about memories becoming sanitized over time. Yeah. I'm sure you could threaten people into saying whatever, but being actually convinced is different than just conforming to avoid social pressure. I totally agree. And that's why I said under the right conditions for that person. The right conditions may be to be dosed with something like LSD. That's what I think could be there. One sect technique is to make people do stuff if they're already convinced of something, because it tends people to end up believing them. Many children lie because they try to make sense and try to fill in the blanks. The other problem too is they don't know what is possible. They don't know what's real. And they also don't know what's going on all the time. My favorite example of this is when I had some cousins that were pretty young, and there were 2 chihuahuas that my aunt had, and the chihuahuas were male and female, and they were engaging in an activity, and these little kids had never seen something like this, and so they ran over, and the male chihuahua's name was Charlie, and they said that a chili pepper came out of Charlie's pants, and the dog started dancing. Now, of course, that's not something that could happen. Dogs don't even wear pants, right? And if they did, would it be down here or over here? Like that meme, right? They don't have chili peppers, and they don't dance. But to a child, this is what it is. And this is actually a big issue with dealing with children who have been harmed in any way by adults, because they don't really understand what's going on, just that it just feels wrong, but they don't really understand what it is. So the phrases they use, especially if their parents don't use the medical terms for parts of their body, there was some phrase, I remember it was one of these cases where there was a child and an uncle, and there were things occurring, but because the mother had taught the daughter that part of her body was called something like, I don't remember exactly, but let's just say it was called a cookie, then the girl would keep saying that her uncle was touching her cookie. And to an adult hearing this, it just sounds like some stupid story a kid says, where they think it's really important because their cookies are important to them because they're tasty snacks, So, oh, my uncle came over and touched my cookie. Okay, cool, have fun playing. Like, who cares? But the child was trying to explain that something is inappropriate is happening, but because their mother did not give them the right words for it, it took too long to get this figured out. It's really, really frustrating. Red Rocket. Hello, Kelly. Every time you access a memory, you affect it, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's that. I think the hard part is how, right? For me, if I feel really intense emotions, I'll write them down. And then when I go back and read it, I can't remember feeling that intensely or having written those things. Most of the stuff I can understand, but there's a few things that I'll write in there and I'm just like, I really felt that way. And it's really strange to me because I never thought about it. So I do, excuse me, I got the hiccups. I do make sure to tell my students, write down notes, because I know when we're in the class, we're doing the lecture, it makes sense. And when I tell you what the vocabulary means, it makes sense. And you got it, and you can put it into your working memory for a couple minutes, and you got it, right? But as soon as you leave the class, and then later on, you're going to go back and look at your notes, you're not going to know what the hell we were talking about. Write it down. Even if it makes sense to you now, write it down. I really try to hammer that home to the students because they don't understand how, I think you have to be taught how to take notes. I think it's a form of writing that you should be taught how to take notes. I had to be taught in college, so yeah. Horrible situation for a kid because context is critical of making sense of memories. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so it's really interesting how this, you know, these things that we find out really affect like criminal stuff, and that's why there's like criminal psychology and those things. Yeah. I stopped writing songs about sad moments because every time I played that song, it brought me right back into the mood. Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. That's frustrating, you know. But at the same time, sometimes, you know, we do want to feel those feelings, you know. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sadness, you know, it's like we shouldn't be happy all the time. We should be sad all the time. You know, it's just one of those emotions. On that note, we're going to try some of these drinks here because I'm worried they're going to get too what's the word? Warm. That's the word. I remember that I really believe 0 plus 0 is bigger than 0. I think it was about 5. It's like double 0. All right, so what I'm going to try here, do you guys have this? Pepsi Mango. Or was that just released in Korea? Was that just released in East Asia? Or did everybody else get Pepsi Mango? Let me know. So let me know as I crack this open. Haven't seen it. You had it. Did you taste it, Phantom? Oh my god. Okay, so we're gonna just a little ASMR for you guys. Haven't seen it in the UK. Yeah, Leonardo, writing it down is so important. What Pepsi with that? It's a sugar-free mango Pepsi. All right, so this, I mean, it looks like Pepsi. Let's just try it. That's a taste test I'm not courageous enough to do. Well, then let me be your guide. You know, Pepsi's already sweeter than Coke, in my opinion. This is not an overt mango flavor. It's really background. It's just kind of a sweeter Pepsi, and it finishes with this mild mango note. I would say if you gave this to me, I wouldn't necessarily peg it as a non-regular Pepsi. The only thing that's different is that smell. It's like a really overpowering artificial mango smell. But other than that, yeah, it's a good time. I don't like Pepsi and I hate mango. What could go wrong? Yeah, that's true. Full sugar cola is more expensive here to fight obesity. Oh, that's good. I tasted many cola at the Museum of Coca-Cola in Atlanta. Oh, nice. Pepsi is a bit hit and miss. It sometimes tastes like soap, and that's just the regular Pepsi Max. Not sure what it's about. There must be, yeah, it must be the perfect Pepsi. It's pretty good. I don't know if I'd buy it again. But I think out of the two, like Pepsi Lime or Pepsi Mango, hands down. We're gonna try Milkis. This one is new because it's got no sugar. So I'm gonna try it out. Let me make sure I get all the Pepsi out of here. All right, Milkis. So Milkis is Korean. I don't remember drinking this. I'm sure I have, but I don't really remember. And I just want to show you that color. Yeah. So it smells It smells tart and creamy. I think it's supposed to be almost like a yogurt drink. I'm trying to find anything on the can that tells me if it's like the refreshing taste of yogurt. You know, I can't drink anything with artificial sweeteners. They all end up tasting like plastic to me. I got you. I used to hate them, but I really got into them. Beer is cheaper than Coke here. Where am I from? Is it Germany? Hey Max. Doing good. You just missed all this talk about psychology. So if you go back for the previous hour 40, hour and a half, yeah, definitely give it a re-listen. Milkus was introduced in the 70s. Yeah, they finally have sugar-free. Obyung, I have no idea why it's so. Like, what's the reason that Koreans really just are slow to adopt sugar-free cola? I really don't know. Milkus and Calpis are both kind of fizzy and milky. I don't know if it's yogurty. How does YouTube remove an entire message I write except the smiley at the end? That is crazy. Ah, yes, you are from Germany. Well, you know, that's a good time to drink cola. Okay. Thanks, Chris. Is Chris AI? This is ChatGPT 0.2. All right, let's give it a try for Milkus. Yeah, it does taste like that fizzy yogurt. I think it tastes like you know those little yogurts, like those little pink yogurts. They're like from Japan and Korea. There's the little pink drinkable yogurts. That's what this tastes like. I do not know the song, Chris. Sorry about that. It's not creamy. That was my biggest concern. Was just the texture of it. It's not at all. Mildly fizzy. I thought it'd be fizzier. I don't know. It might be good if you had it with something really spicy. That's the only way I could see myself really drinking this, is if it's with something spicy. Yeah. Yakult. Yeah, that yogurt. That's the one. Speaking of AI, did get Midjourney to generate one of the most beautiful photos I've ever seen. Oh, that sounds cool. It's more like cream soda. No. How would you, Hamid, how would you describe the taste of Yakult? All right, let me try. Because it's its own taste. If you haven't had the Yakult, because that's what it tastes like. It tastes like Yakult. All right, think of plain yogurt, and you added sugar to it. And the sugar also took down some of the tartness. And the tartness is still there, but the sugar took care of most of it. But it still tastes like plain yogurt. It's just sweet. That's what it tastes like. So there's a tanginess to it that cream soda doesn't have. Cream soda is like vanilla flavor. This is plain yogurt, and it's tangy, but not as tangy as unsweetened plain yogurt. That's the only way I can really describe it. But definitely not cream soda. Remember, Bay and Suke have been #1. They don't really care until Korean students studying the USA. That's true. It's almost like the milk you get after having too much sugary cereal. Ooh, let me see. I think it's got too much tang to it. It's definitely yogurty. Yeah. But don't think of like those thick drinks like maybe it'll taste similar to a plain lassi that has sugar in it. That might be a similar flavor. So if you've had lassi, that yogurt drink from India, it's like that. But just imagine there's so much sugar that it cuts some of the tartness. So it's tangy, but it's not tart. Yeah, I like cream soda. It makes me sad. All right, I don't know what I want to try next. The big fear is that I forgot to grab a thing, but I guess who is it? Kelly? Wissen Sie diese Trink? Do you know this one? This is Omdula. Okay, that's vegan. So a student gave me this, and I don't know. What would you say this tastes like? Or maybe don't tell me, because I want to try it by myself, and then tell me if it's right. I think I'll save this one, because it's not... Let me get a, I gotta get a can opener or a bottle opener anyway. Yeah, Almdudler, that's right. I will return in 2 seconds. What do we got? Okie dokes. I just got this actually from AliExpress. So it's a multi-tool. I'm assuming it has oil on it. Delicious. Yeah, it's got one of those. How am I opening this though? I just want this guy out. You know, normally they have those little parts on it, those little grooves to pull these out, but this is a little different. But hey, you know, $7. You know what I mean? Can't complain. Come on, you. All right, let's do it. So we'll give this a go. Come on, if it'll work. Okay. There's almost no smell. Let's try it out. Okay. Pouring them all into different glasses because I plan to share these later. Don't want mouth germs all over them. That is tangy. I made a little bit of a face maybe when I was drinking it because I couldn't smell anything at first, and then it just smelled like medicine. It's really refreshing, really tangy. It's like tangy as if it was lemonade, but not sweet and not lemon flavored. That's how I'm gonna describe it. It's like lemonade with depression. Yeah, depressionade. That's what it is. It's an herb soda. Okay, that's what we got it. I like it though. It's nice. If you because you said it's an herb soda, I'm guessing elderflower. That might be responsible for some of that. What's up, Yasuke? I've always thought of Yakult being more of a strawberry flavor. I guess it would. I mean, I guess if I had to pick a fruit that it resembles, I would say strawberry. But if you just drank it on its own, I don't know if I would say, oh, this is strawberry flavored. Maybe like a strawberry yogurt milkshake or strawberry yogurt smoothie, but it's more yogurt. Maybe that's a way to describe it. Oh yeah, McCola. I love McCola. It's barley cola. It's really good. It's a good time. I wouldn't drink it every day, but now and again, it's a nice change in taste. I think it'll be really nice. I'm thinking to have maybe a picnic or something this weekend. I think it'll be nice. The next one on our list is Walker's Classic Cola with black tea. I have had cola with coffee in it. I think it's very tasty. So this black tea one, yeah. Ingredients, it's just flavors. And this is from Malaysia. So let's give it a try. Oh no, definitely get the yogurt, but like a strawberry flavored yogurt. I got you. Oof, wow. That was very pleasing. I gotta blow out the evil spirits. And all right, that's the color. It's Cola-ish, you know. Let's see. Oh, it's Austria, not Germany. Yes. I was just wondering if you got it in Germany. But yes, I do want to. I don't want to upset any of my Austrian viewers. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Where did the student get it from? I think one of their parents has like a foreign food shop or something. I remember a fruit drink called Fernandez with nature identical fruit aromas. It tasted like you would imagine it would. You got it in Indonesian tokos with your nasi rames. That's interesting. You like the color? It is a nice color. Let's try. It's tangier than I expected. I don't know if I would say I can really taste the black tea. How to describe it? It's like tangy Coke, but mild Coke. It's not like a cola that jumps out with a lot of flavor. It's really smooth, but then there's just this tanginess at the end, this tartness to it. Which I feel like if the tartness wasn't there, this would definitely be superior to cola, just because it's kind of muted in the flavor. I think as a mixer for alcohol, this would be much better than cola. In any drink that is cola, I bet you can swap this out and it would taste better. That's how I'm going to describe it. Actually, really good. All right, this last one. Nope, sorry, it was my phone. So, nature identical worries me as a description. Yeah, right? Sounds like something an AI would say. All right. This one inspired the entire drink taste test. This is Iyoshi Craft Cola. It's from Japan, but I bought it in Korea. The sticker, oh, you can't really see this part for some reason, but the sticker's like really soft. It looks like papery. This costs like $10, 10 US dollars. And naturally, I had to know why. There's also, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some sediment down here. So we're gonna try to mix this up a bit. It says that it's the dreamy flavor. It's a craft cola, and again, it's like $10. So why? I don't know. I don't know about this sediment. So let's go ahead and take this off. We break the mold as a kingfisher diving into the water. Okay. Just did not want it to spray all over my freaking keyboard. Okay. That's interesting. It smells of cloves. Okay. There it is. Nice color. Oh, I just realized because it's green, you can't see this this thing. Don't do this as somebody who's observing you call it ambience. As long as there's no pumpkin in it, I'm all right. Okay. It better have some alcohol in it. I don't think it does. No. All right. Let's try it out. Wow. That is spicy. And I mean like warming spices, not peppery. Cinnamon, pretty heavy clove flavor. Wow. Vanilla. There's that tang again. Without that tang, I think it'd be pretty good. Wow. That's something. This tastes like if somebody wanted to make a cola for Christmas, this is what it would taste like. Kind of a gingerbread scent without the bread. Huh. I don't know what to think about it. I like the idea of, I mean, I love ginger ale, you know, so this to me is like a really elevated ginger ale. Again, I could do without that tanginess. But I will be honest, all of these had a weird tanginess to them, so this could be an effect of long COVID. For me, I didn't completely lose my taste, but it really altered my taste. And is there some lag? I don't see myself on the screen. So I don't know. It really altered my taste. And mulled wine, Kelly's asking. I don't know. I don't know if it's mulled wine. Yeah. But it's something. I mean I want to keep drinking it, but I don't want to, because I promised my friends that I would let them try it. Because it's just, you know, why is it a $10 cola? Yeah, but I wonder if this tangy background to it is an effect of that. Because with long COVID, one of the effects I got was just an altered taste. So things that are salty taste way too salty to me, and there's a lot of butter I taste, even in stuff that isn't butter. Like I bought a cup ramen, a Japanese cup ramen with supposed to be spicy seafood or spicy curry seafood flavor, something like that. I couldn't taste spicy, I couldn't taste seafood, I could just taste melted butter. That was it. So for a while I only ate toast and butter. That's all I could really palate or tolerate. It was the only part that was palatable to me. So yeah, I don't know. This tanginess just seems like, because it's the same tanginess. So maybe none of them are this tangy. Oh no. That's not fair. I like doing taste tests. I don't want long COVID to mess that up. No kimchi cola. Oh my god, Obyung. There was a company that was selling kimchi water. Yeah, I tried it. Yeah, it tastes like kimchi water. What else? What was I expecting? I don't know. But yeah, it was weird. It was in one of those pouches, you know, with the little part and you slurp it out the top. There were no pieces. It was just kimchi water. I don't know. Pretty crazy stuff. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to get ready eventually. Try a regular one. You know how it tastes. You're right. For a while, you couldn't believe it wasn't butter. Yeah, I know. Let me try my coffee. I mean, it's all right. It's bitter. I don't know. Now I feel like I'm overthinking it. Overanalyzing my flavors. We'll just leave it. Leave it as is. That's exciting. Yep. Regarding long COVID, have you heard of Physics Girl, the YouTuber? No. What happened? Let's do physics. Physics Girl. Something with COVID. Update Dana's health. Oh, long COVID and CFS. Oh boy. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with CFS. Yeah, long COVID, that's no joke. You know, I obviously don't have anything serious. I still get pretty tired walking, like really out of breath, but that's kind of it. But for some people, it's pretty bad because I mean it's a SARS virus, you know. It's and we knew for SARS-1 it had SARS, you know. Oh, that sucks. Sorry, Summer. Yeah, I believe it. CFS is no joke either. I know one of my friends had it. It was pretty terrible. I'm just kind of checking through this. It looks like she's in bed a lot, just having a really rough time. I feel really sorry for her. It's hard to go through that because you know, I got messed up in the military and just it's just like it takes a while to accept it and to understand that your life has changed forever. And I think a hard part about it was people around you not understanding it very much. And it's just like, well, you were fine and now you're not. But you're not like missing a leg or something, you know? It's like if you got your leg blown off, everyone would understand, but you don't. And I think part of the problem too is these fit inspiration posts that are like a guy with one leg who's a bodybuilder, and it's like, well, if he can do it, how come you can't do it? I don't know. I mean, just because like some people make the Olympics doesn't mean everyone can be in the Olympics. You know what I mean? It's like that's like looking at somebody who won a Nobel Prize and saying, "Oh, well, you know, if this person can do it, how come you can't do it?" Right? Um, there's a lot of different circumstances, and so people, I think too, especially with faith-based stuff, they kind of expect you to get better, and you don't, and they're praying for you, and you don't get better. So then they think, well, my prayers aren't ineffective. It's just you're lying. So it's very frustrating to have invisible conditions, you know, or you'll be making plans or something with people, and then you get these really bad migraines, and you're just puking, and you try to, you didn't plan it, right? And so your friend's like, hey, you know, I came out all this way to meet you, and you're just like, I can't do anything. And then they feel like you're being a jerk to them. You know, what do you mean? What do you mean you can't do anything? Like, I came out all this way. So then you feel obligated, you know, and you're just puking on the street. And it just sucks. You know, and then they make comments about you for puking on the street, you know. They're unsure she's going to make it, but I guess outwardly optimistically. Such a bubbly girl reduced to a sad puddle. Yeah. Yeah, it's devastating, for sure. I hope that she's able to find a way through it. I really do. Heading to bowling with the kiddos. Enjoy your morning, evening, or night. Alright, enjoy. Yes, okay, have fun. I got MS. Every time somebody says you can do everything, you have to just really want it. I am close to murder. Well, if you want to murder them, Kelly, you can do anything as long as you want it enough. Yeah, that kind of belief, that kind of faith belief that you can do it as long as you want it. Again, you know, I would just say to them, which I haven't thought of until just now, so that sucks. Missed opportunities, right? You know, if that happens to you, again, just say, well, you know, can you get a Nobel Prize? Can you get an Olympic gold medal for figure skating? Just because you like it, you know? And I mean, think about all the people that try and they don't get anywhere close. Sometimes you're just in a situation where you can't. And I think it leaves you in a weird position trying to deal with it as a person whose body is kind of broken down. So you sort of end up with this idea that I should be able to do everything, or I have to hold back. Because if I can do something today, then everyone's going to expect me to do it tomorrow. And if I can't do it tomorrow, they're going to call me a liar because I just did it today. You know what I mean? And that's really frustrating, you know? And so for Physics Girl, there may be days when she feels like, yeah, I can totally make a video. And then she makes a video and everyone's happy. And then she'll say, sorry, I can't make a video for a while. I'm feeling really drained. And then people will say, well, you made that other video. How come you can't make it again? You know, so it is frustrating. You know, sometimes I do live streams with a migraine. And there are times that I do live streams, I don't have a migraine. And there are times when I cancel a live stream because I have a migraine. And it's because there's levels of it. But I think unless you have something like it, or you've known somebody with them, you know, you don't know what that's like. Same with so the migraines are secondary for me. Secondary to like a primary neurological issue that affects mostly my left side. So even now, like my left side hurts just sitting here. And, you know, just to have people not understand like why you can't run for a pedestrian light. And I'm just like, you guys, you know, well, we were supposed to go to this restaurant as a bunch of coworkers, especially for the new coworkers. And as we're trying to go to we all went by the subway, and as we're trying to walk down the stairs to get to the subway boarding area, the train area, the subway showed up. And they all ran down the stairs and they said, come on, come on, come on. And I just had to say, oh, you know, you guys, I'll catch you. I'll catch the next one. So thankfully there's a couple people that knew that and they stayed behind with me. Just so I wouldn't feel so alone. But, you know, you feel like you can't even hurry down the stairs, you know? And don't advocate unaliving people. That's true. Let's see. Shane says, puking on the street is a very specific example that you gave like 3 times. Methinks this is not hypothetical. It's not. No, it's not hypothetical. No, it really, really happened. Yeah. What made it worse too was the person made a negative comment. Like, oh, that's gross. Thanks. I already feel disgusting. And I'm in physical pain. And I'm only out here because I felt guilty. And now you're telling me how gross I am. You know. That street had it coming. Yeah, Webb. It's like the people who love basketball but are 5 feet tall. It's just life. Exactly. They can't want their way into the, you know, professional basketball. Imagine being that being carved into your headstone, murdered by a person with MS. That's it. MS stands for murder, suicide. I'm sorry. Sometimes you gotta make jokes about it or you're gonna cry, you know what I mean? I'm old enough that I get away with being grumpy old guy when someone's miffing me off about MS. That's, you know what's interesting? Speaking of that, my students will think that I'm gonna be like extra sympathetic to their migraines. I mean, I got meds, you know, you need something for your head, I got that, but they'll be like, oh, teacher, you know, I had a migraine. And I'm like, okay. So what? You know, like they stay home. Yeah, that must be nice. Must be nice to stay home with a migraine. You know, or they won't do some work, and that, you know, it's fine as long as they stay on top of it. But for things like, oh, I missed this really important presentation that I was supposed to give because I had a migraine. And I'm like, well, I had a migraine, I was here. You know, what kind of sympathy can I give? You know, you feel bad, but at the same time, it's like, you can't manipulate me just because I there's no way I even know if they have migraines, you know? So maybe you're just saying that because you think I will be sympathetic. I'm not unsympathetic. It's just, I'm not going to let you get out of doing your work because of it. I mean, there are times, you know, I'll tell my professor, it's rare, but it happens. And I say, you know, I've been having these really terrible migraines. I know there's a thing due today. I'm not 100%. And I just notify them. Like, I know it's due in, 10 hours. I'm still not 100%. And I'm going to do my best to turn something in. If it's not very coherent, please let me know so I can clarify any parts that are confusing. But, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to turn it in on time. And I'm also not sure how coherent it's going to be. And I just give them a heads up. And that's what I ask for from the students. If you wake up with a migraine, there's nothing you can do, but at least let me know, because if you let me know, I can plan for it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm really trying to encourage the students to do is to have that level of responsibility. If you're, if you want to function in society, these are not an excuse to not function. These are a reason to be accommodated, reasonably accommodated, but it's not a reason to not function. So, for example, because of my level of disability, the military will just pay me, and in the U.S., I can qualify for like medical cannabis, and so I could just stay home and get high all day. Like, I don't have to work. I choose to work. So if I choose to work, I have to follow all the rules of working, right? Reasonable accommodations my school makes is they let me keep my lights off in my classroom, and I can wear my colored glasses if I need to. I've got a bunch of them, and that's it. What do you guys think of these, by the way? Very futuristic, right? Yeah, those are reasonable accommodations. If I have to run out of my class vomiting, that happens. That's it, but otherwise I still got to do all my work, so if your situation is so debilitating that you can't function in everyday society, then that's your situation. So it's okay to get a GED. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are going to try to do things the standard way, you have to meet that standard. That's the thing. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to get to them, if that makes sense. So I don't want to sound like I'm being too much of a jerk, because it's just, these aren't going to disappear. If you have migraines that develop as a teenager, they're probably not going to go away. You have to find a way to deal with them. MS stands for manslaughter. What's weird that relatives usually understand it the least. Right. It's like, me. This is the antithesis of my existence before. What makes you think that just suddenly I decided to be lazy and lie about being disabled? Like, nothing about who I am as a person or any of my past actions could possibly lead you to believe that I would be a person who lies about being injured in order to take it easy. Why would you think I'm lying? And I think for them, a lot of times it's just hard to accept, and that's what they've said. It's hard to accept that this is the situation. These days, they get it. But when it first happened, it was just like, I mean, you're not crooked. Like, there's not something broken where you can't sit up straight. There's something visual about it, Yeah, it's just hard. Let's see. I dislike it when people think their pain equates the same as mine. I'm okay with people complaining about their pain, because I did have a coworker who talked about having the worst headache of his life, and then halfway through he said, well, look who I'm talking to. You have migraines. You probably don't care about this stupid little headache, compared to what you go through. I said, no. I mean, this is the worst you have had. That's the worst you've had. It's relative, But in other ways, when people will try to tell me that, oh, I overcame something totally not similar, therefore you can too. No. Because I had a staff sergeant tell me, well, I had a busted ankle and I still I still did a run. And I said, okay. And he got mad that I didn't, like, I was questioning what he had to say, but what's your point? I don't have a broken ankle. And when I did break my foot, I still took all my gear, which was more than half my body weight, and I walked 15 kilometers as part of a training. It's called a hump. I had a broken foot and did that. So obviously I can push through foot pain. I don't have foot pain. Why are you saying? And that's what he was trying. He was trying to convince me that I could do this thing, because one time when he had a busted ankle, he did a different thing. Okay. He was such a no respect for that guy, just in general. I always let my students iterate on their work, so they could always turn it in late for a better grade as long as they turn in something, even just a post-it saying sorry. Yeah, I emphasize that they can turn it in late for points, but also if you notify me, I'll let you just turn it in. And you can turn it in late, and I will not remove any late points. I tell them that it's in the syllabus, it's in the beginning of the year, and I remind them it's okay. Life happens, you know? Sometimes you can't focus on social studies. I know that this class is not high on your priority list. I get it. You know, you're doing the class. Maybe you enjoy the way I teach it. You know, you're not being mean to me, but I understand the class itself. Most students aren't really interested in it. They don't really see how it's relevant. I try to make it relevant, which is why they tend to like my class. But, you know, otherwise I know that there's a more emphasis on stuff like science, math, writing, that kind of stuff. I get it. I know you want to do well in the class because you just care about your GPA, not that you're necessarily caring about the content of this class. I get it. And I get that sometimes you get sick, maybe your parents are arguing, your friend broke up with you. Yeah, I get it. So just tell me. That's it. You don't even need to ask permission. Just send me an email. Hey, you know, Ms. Lemon, the thing that's due on Monday, I don't think I'll be able to turn it in on Monday. Okay. That's it. Because I tell them, if you tell me when it happens, then it's easier to accept than if you tell me after. So if it's already due and then you come to me when it's late and you say, well, I didn't turn it in yesterday because Sunday blah 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 happened, maybe, and I don't assume you're lying, but I can't prove you're telling the truth. At least if you tell me on a Sunday, that seems more reasonable. You know, it's more likely that there is really something happening. And the students can't take advantage of this, because if they keep putting it off, okay, but they still have to do it, otherwise they'll just get a 0. So the 0 stays there until they fix it. But they can't just keep putting it off, because it piles up and then they have to do it, you know. See you, Menno. Is the Patreon live stream still tomorrow? It is, Shane, yes. For the non-modern people, 15 kilometers, roughly 9.3 miles. I don't follow your logic. I love those false correlations, yeah. No, it's not an April Fool's joke, no. It's not one of those. Don't worry. Although I did wonder if you guys would wonder that, because it's the March live stream for April. I was just too busy this last weekend because of the grading. So it was one of those take your work home and grade it kind of things. Not a good time. But yeah, it'll still be tomorrow. Don't worry. We'll definitely talk more about the AI stuff and probably some religious stuff as well. Yeah. But that's, yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I do want to put my head on some ice before my friend shows up, because I don't want one of those puking on the street situations. So it's so embarrassing. Ugh, it's so embarrassing. Plus it just hurts. So, yeah. But at least, you know, they got cool glasses. These are my other ones. I think they match the outfit today. So I think I'm going to be wearing these. Good times. All right. So, yep. Meds, ice, and my friend's coming over in like an hour. So Before we talk about AI, everyone needs to read the Hyperion Cantos DLC. All right, we got it. Also, rats. I made something with rats. I gotta share it with you. It was an AI thing. Just remind me. Send me a message on Discord. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. And yeah, I will see you later. I will answer Shuggle's question. How calm is the weather right now? It's okay. Calm, heating up, but the big problem is the dust. So we're kind of in the yellow dust season, and the air is just not very good. So even though we're, the mask mandate is pretty much lifted, I don't know if there is a place where you still have to wear a mask. Maybe the hospital? I don't know. But otherwise, it's lifted from public transport and everything. Most of us are still wearing masks just because the damn air. So that's exciting. All right. Have fun. Long live Krampus and the feline empire. He was pretty good today. I left the door open. He never wants to go in this room unless I'm on the computer. I don't know. The computer's not in the room. But if I'm on the computer, typing, talking, he will scratch at this door. He doesn't scratch there normally. It doesn't matter if I'm live streaming. It doesn't matter if I'm doing my work. So I left it open this time. That's why he's so quiet. Hospitals and some pharmacies. I got you. I mean, that makes sense. But yeah, I'm still wearing it today. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Have fun. Thanks for joining me, especially for trying out those drinks. I will try some other drinks, and I'll see if they're unnecessarily tangy too. We'll see. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye-bye.